The first golden light of dawn stretched across the wide savanna. A cool breeze drifted through the tall grass, carrying with it the faint scent of morning dew. Acacia trees stood like gentle guardians, their branches swaying softly as the sun began to rise. In this quiet yet lively land lived a young giraffe named Luma. Luma was unlike the others in his herd. While most giraffes spent their mornings nibbling tender leaves or strolling lazily across the plain, Luma preferred to move his long body in ways no one expected. He bent, twisted, stretched, and leapt, delighting in the rhythm of his own strange movements. His heart danced whenever the first light of the sun touched his skin. "Why do you always bend and sway so oddly?" asked an older giraffe one morning. She tilted her head with confusion. "You look as if you are trying to be a bird, though you cannot fly." Luma smiled gently. "It makes me feel alive," he said, as the breeze brushed against his face. "When I stretch high and bow low, when I turn my neck like a ribbon, I feel the sunrise inside me." The older giraffes only shook their heads. They returned to their quiet grazing, letting the leaves crunch softly between their teeth. But Luma continued to practice his morning motions, leaping with long legs, spinning clumsily yet joyfully. To him, it was more than exercise. It was a secret conversation with the sky. As days passed, word of his unusual habits spread among the animals. Zebras whispered with chuckles. "Look at that giraffe with legs tangled like vines," one said as they galloped past. Antelopes paused to watch, ears twitching with curiosity. Even the monkeys in the trees laughed and clapped. "Dance again, long neck," they teased. Though their voices sometimes made him blush, Luma did not stop. Deep in his chest, he carried a spark that no laughter could put out. He believed there was something special in his way of greeting the sunrise. Each movement was like painting with his body, telling stories without words. Yet, not everyone found it amusing. A lion named Ruko watched from a distance with narrowed eyes. He was proud, strong, and liked order in the savanna. To him, everything had a purpose: running to chase, grazing to eat, or resting in shade. The sight of a giraffe turning and twirling like a leaf in the wind made him snarl. "One day," Ruko muttered, "his nonsense will cause trouble. He will forget what he truly is." The words floated on the wind, but Luma did not hear them. He was too busy bending backward in a graceful arch, his silhouette glowing against the brightening horizon. The mornings continued like this, filled with soft laughter, curious glances, and the steady beat of Luma's heart. Still, a question began to grow inside him. Why was he the only one who felt this joy in movement? Why did no other giraffe rise with the sun and sway with the breeze? Sometimes, late at night, when the stars glittered above, he wondered if his heart was beating to the wrong rhythm. One evening, as the sky turned purple and the first crickets sang, Luma walked slowly to the riverbank. The water rippled with silver light. He saw his reflection stretch and bend on the surface. For the first time, doubt touched his spirit. "Maybe I am foolish," he whispered. "Maybe they are right, and I am only a clown for others to laugh at." The reeds shivered softly. A kingfisher landed nearby, dipping its beak in the water. "Why so quiet, tall dreamer?" it asked in a cheerful chirp. Luma lifted his gaze. "Do you think it is strange to move like I do? The others laugh at me." The bird tilted its head. "Strange? Perhaps, but strange can also be beautiful. I dive, though I cannot walk far. You stretch, though you cannot fly. Each gift is different." The words warmed Luma's heart like fireflies on a dark night. He breathed deeply, letting the cool air fill his lungs. Perhaps the kingfisher was right. Still, he longed for someone to truly understand, someone to move with him, to leap at sunrise and bend with the rhythm of the dawn. The next morning arrived with a brilliant blush of orange. Luma returned to his spot near the acacia tree. His legs trembled as he began to move, not from weakness, but from a hope that perhaps today something would change. He stretched tall, lifted one leg high, then spun with a sweep of his neck. The earth seemed to hum beneath his hooves. From the corner of his eye, he noticed a shadow. A young zebra stood nearby, her stripes glimmering in the sunlight. She watched quietly, her ears perked. Unlike the others, she did not laugh. Instead, her eyes shone with curiosity. "What are you doing?" she asked softly. Luma paused, his chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. "It is my gymnastics, my way of greeting the sunrise." The zebra blinked. Then, with a cautious step, she lowered her front legs and stretched. She stumbled slightly, but laughed with delight. "It feels funny, but also light." For the first time, Luma's heart soared higher than the sun. He was not alone anymore. The next dawn came with a hush that felt like a promise. Pale gold drifted over the plain, and the acacia leaves trembled as the soft wind passed. Luma returned to his favorite patch of earth, the place where his hooves had traced many circles in the dust. He lifted his head to the tender light, breathed in deeply, and felt his heart beat with hope. The sound of hooves approached, quick and light, like a song. The young zebra from yesterday stepped beside him with a bright smile. "My name is Zuri," she said, ears flicking gently. "May I try again, old friend?" "You may," he answered, and warmth filled his chest. "Move slowly at first. Think of the sun as a hand that lifts you, and the earth as a hand that steadies you." Zuri copied his gentle bow. She stretched one foreleg, then the other, and swayed her striped body with care. She wobbled, laughed, and tried again. The monkeys watched from the branches and clapped their hands in soft rhythm. A pair of jackals paused with their heads tilted, curious and calm. Even the wind seemed to lean in close, as if it wished to learn the steps. Luma showed her how to breathe with long patience. He rose tall, then lowered his long neck until it curved like a path of moonlight. He'd bent his knees, felt the ground's cool strength, and let his weight glide from hoof to hoof. Zuri followed with a bright face and steady courage. Each small success made her eyes shine. The morning grew warm and kind. It felt as if the sky were listening. Ruko watched from a shady rock, his eyes thoughtful behind their stern gleam. He said nothing at first. His tail made a faint mark in the dust. He did not like nonsense, and yet he could not say that the sight before him was only that. The giraffe moved with care that held no vanity. The zebra learned without boasting. A quiet pride softened the lion's frown, though he would not admit it. Then the soft wind shifted. It came from the east with a dry whisper. The grass spoke in a rough voice, as if it held a secret that hurt. Birds rose from a far thicket with sharp cries. A red smear appeared on the rim of the plain, narrow at first, then growing like a hungry tongue. Zuri froze with one leg lifted. Luma felt the world tighten. "Smoke," Ruko rumbled, already on his feet. "A grass fire pushes west. Move toward the river. Do not waste breath." Fear rippled through the animals as a shadow ripples across water. Antelopes gathered their young. Warthogs snorted with worry. Monkeys flung themselves to lower branches, then to the ground. Ruko's voice cut through the rising panic with firm strength. He urged them into a line, not with cruel force, but with the steady command of a guardian who knew the land. Luma turned to Zuri. "Stay close, little one," he said. "We will move as we practiced, one breath at a time." They set off at a careful trot, guided by Ruko and the distant sparkle of the river's silver back. The air thickened with the bite of smoke. The sun grew hazy, like a fruit behind thin cloth. A weaver bird nest trembled on a low branch, as parent birds darted in loops of anxiety. Luma's heart tugged toward them, but he kept the line in sight. He trusted the river and the path that Ruko knew. The plain opened into a shallow hollow carved by last season's rain. A narrow fallen acacia lay across it like a bridge. On the other side, the slope rose toward a belt of reeds, and beyond that shimmered the river. The hollow was not deep, yet the ground at the bottom was a thick soup of clay and old water. Any small one who slipped there would sink to the knees and lose time to fear. Ruko leapt onto the trunk to test it. The wood creaked but held. Smoke hissed at the edge of hearing. The fire moved fast across the dry grass, not with high flames yet, but with the crawling hunger of a lizard that knows where every rock is. The lion looked to Luma. "You are the tallest," he said. "Cross first and show them how to step. I will keep the order and lift those who hesitate." Luma nodded, though his heart thudded in his chest. He placed one hoof on the trunk and felt its temper. He let his knees soften. He set the second hoof, then the third, then the last. His neck stretched forward with the grace of a branch seeking light. He breathed in slowly and exhaled with care. The trunk rolled a finger's width under his weight, then settled. "Go on," Ruko called to the line. "Watch his breath. You have feet and courage. Use both." Zuri went next. Her small hoofs found the bark. She kept her gaze ahead, where Luma's calm filled the space like a lamp. A young gazelle followed. Then 2 jackals, each step neat as a stitch. Monkeys crossed in a shy parade, tails curling for balance. A heavy warthog hesitated, snout trembling, but Ruko steadied the trunk with his paws and a low growl of comfort. The warthog crossed with a surprised laugh. A gust shoved smoke into the hollow. The world turned gray for a breath, then cleared as the wind changed again. Luma guided each traveler up the far slope with gentle nudges of his head. He spoke to the little ones with soft words. He told them to feel the tree through their hooves. He told them to imagine a wide, kind hand beneath them. They listened. When fear rose, his voice smoothed it like water smooths hot stones. Almost everyone was across when a crack rang through the smoke. The trunk shifted. A thin branch, buried under dirt, snapped and released the log's weight. It rolled a little. Zuri, who had turned back to encourage a timid fawn, slipped and fell to her knees. Her breath broke into quick pieces. The fawn bleated, eyes wide. Luma moved without thinking. He slid down the far slope and stepped onto the trunk again. He set his long neck along the higher side like a counterweight. His chest pressed against the bark. His legs found a stance that he knew not from books, but from dawn practice with no audience. He became part of the tree. The trunk listened to his steady push and stopped rolling. "Stand," he said to Zuri in a warm whisper. "Lean into the breath we practiced." Zuri drew in air. It trembled at first, then grew deep and sweet. She rose to her feet. Luma guided the fawn with a touch of his nose. The small one found courage and crossed, tiny legs quivering, little heart bright with the wish to live. Zuri followed with careful steps, her stripes smudged with dust, her eyes fierce with will. Behind them, a louder crack split the air. Flames licked the edge of the hollow like the tongues of many small snakes. The last animals on the near side were the weaver birds, a wounded springbok, and 2 meerkats who had gone stiff with fear. Ruko's voice boomed with command. He sent the meerkats first. They clung together and scurried across, tiny feet quick. The springbok tried to leap the hollow instead of using the bridge, but pain snagged his front leg. He staggered. He would fall if he tried again, and the fire did not have patience. "We need another path," Ruko said, eye scanning, mind quick. Luma looked at the stones beside the hollow. He saw one shaped like a flattened egg. He saw a second like a pillow. He had learned from the sunrise how weight can travel through curves. He stepped from the trunk and nudged the first stone with his chest. It rolled, but did not tumble away. He tapped the second with a careful hoof. He made a low sound in his throat to set a rhythm for his own courage. He created a line of 3 steady steps in the mud. He turned to the springbok. "Old friend," he said, "place your hooves where mine have pressed. Think of the river. It is waiting to hold your fear and carry it away." The springbok obeyed with a sigh that sounded like a prayer. He crossed with slow grace and reached the far slope. Joy flared in his eyes like a small sun. The weaver birds fluttered beside their nest in a spin of panic. The nest was woven on a low branch that hung over the hollow. Smoke wrapped it in a bitter scarf. Luma reached for the branch with his mouth. The heat nipped his whiskers. He held the branch and lifted it as high as he could. Ruko sprang to the trunk and anchored it with his whole weight. The nest shifted into clean air. The birds shot out, dizzy but brave, and cleared the smoke. Luma let the branch fall free and felt his heart steady again. They crossed at last. Ruko leapt to the far side with a final sweep of his tail and a low roar that made fear retreat. Together, the lion and the giraffe led the line to the reeds. The river cooled the smoke with a patient song. Animals stepped into the shallows and let the water touch their legs. The fire reached the hollow and found no gentle food to eat. It stumbled and thinned. A hush spread, broken only by the river's voice and the soft relief of many breaths. Zuri stood beside Luma and pressed her shoulder to his leg. "You carried the trunk as if it were a friend," she said, smiling through her soot. "You moved the stones like notes in a song. I felt brave because you were calm." He looked at her with quiet joy. "You were brave because you chose to be," he said. "Sunrise lives in you, little one." Ruko approached, mane speckled with ash, eyes clear. He looked at the tall dreamer without pride's old armor. He inclined his head in a small bow that meant more than many words. His voice came low and steady. "I thought your morning play was a tangle without purpose. Today, I watched you turn practice into protection. You bent so others would not break. You found paths where I saw none. Old friend, you have taught me something fierce and soft at once." Luma felt a shy heat touch his cheeks. He glanced at the river where light trembled like laughter. The breeze shifted again, cooler now, sweet with safety. In the reeds, frogs sang as if evening had arrived early to thank the day. That night, stars returned to their places with gentle grace. Ash fell like quiet snow on the far plain. The herd settled by the water with slow sighs. Zuri slept with her head on her forelegs, content and tired. Ruko kept watch on a hummock, eyes half closed, ears listening to the peace he had helped guard. Luma lay down and drifted near sleep, but his heart stayed awake with gratitude. He thought of the trunk as a partner, the stones as patient teachers, the river as an old friend who never asked for praise. Before dawn, he woke to the tender hush that comes when the world tries to remember its first song. He rose, all joints careful, neck long with joy. A few silhouettes moved in the dim, the springbuck still limping but bright, the jackals curious and kind, the monkeys soft with sleep but willing. Zuri stood beside him and yawned, eyes shining. "Will you show us again," she asked, "how to greet the morning with breath and balance?" Ruko stepped from his hummock and sat at the edge of the group. He did not bow or boast. He simply looked ready to learn. The sky flushed like a peach. A cool ribbon of wind stroked the grass and whispered through the reeds. The first birds tested a delicate note. Luma smiled, feeling the light lift his chest. He began with the smallest movement, a promise inside the bones. He showed them how to stand on kindness, not fear. He guided them to rise tall without becoming hard. He guided them to bend without breaking. He taught them to breathe as if the sun were a door that opened slowly to welcome all hearts. The animals followed, some stiff, some graceful, all willing. The day arrived, quiet and bright. The grass fire had left a dark scar far behind them. On the clean bank, many bodies moved with a new patience. They swayed in time with the river. They stretched toward the sky with the courage of those who have discovered a path inside themselves. Luma felt the world soften and widen at once. He knew that the practice he loved could belong to more than one dreamer. He knew that the dawn had room for every gift, even the ones that once seemed strange. He closed his eyes for a moment and felt the breath of the plain. He felt the earth holding every hoof. He felt the sky lifting every head. When he opened his eyes, the sun rose like a tender drum, and his heart beat with hope. The next days passed like soft pages in a book. The herd lingered near the river, where the air was cooler and the grass grew green. Ash still stained the horizon, but new shoots pushed through, brave and fresh. Each sunrise, Luma led his quiet practice beneath the acacia trees. At first, only Zuri and a few young ones joined. Soon, more came. The springbok with his healing leg, the monkeys who once clapped with laughter. Even the shy meerkats peeked from the reeds and tried to follow. They bent, swayed, and breathed in rhythm with the dawn. Some stumbled, some lost balance, and some shook with hidden laughter. Yet none mocked, for every heart knew how it felt to wobble before finding a steady path. Luma guided them with gentle eyes. He reminded them that a breath could be a bridge, and a pause could be a gift. One morning, Ruko himself stepped into the circle. The lion's mane glowed with the pale fire of sunrise. He lowered his body, bent his strong legs, and let his breath rise like smoke from a calm hearth. His movements were stiff at first, yet his spirit softened. A hush fell as the animals watched their proud guardian join in silence. The river shimmered as if it smiled. "You see," Luma whispered when the circle ended, "we each move differently, yet the sunrise belongs to all." Zuri nuzzled his leg, her stripes bright with joy. "You showed us that strength can be soft and softness can be strong. Even the fire could not break that truth." The words filled Luma's chest like warm rain. He no longer felt alone. The spark that once danced only in his own heart now glowed across the herd. He understood at last why he had been given this strange gift of movement. It was not to be laughed at. It was not to hide. It was to remind every creature that the body, like the spirit, must bend and breathe with life. As the season turned, the scar left by the fire began to bloom with tender green. Birds nested again in the acacias. The air smelled of rain and promise. Each morning, the animals gathered with quiet eagerness. They moved together, not for show, not for pride, but for the simple joy of beginning the day with balance. The savanna itself seemed calmer, its heartbeat steady with theirs. The giraffe lifted his neck high one dawn and gazed across the plain. He saw the sun kiss the horizon and felt its light touch every back, every wing, every hoof. His heart swelled not with pride, but with peace. He had doubted himself once, but the doubt had melted like mist. He knew now that what begins as strangeness can grow into strength if it is guided with patience and kindness. The giraffe closed his eyes, swayed with the breeze, and let the sunrise carry him. Around him, His friends moved too, each in their own way, yet together. The plain breathed with them, a great and gentle chorus. And so the mornings of the savannah were never quite the same again.